So to import something, you click File, Import, and then go to File, and then choose from your memory, computer memory or memory stick, the item that you want. Click it and it will appear in that list on the left. And then what you can then do is click on it and drag it into the multi-track mixer. This line that's moving along, the vertical line which has a blue dot at the top, that's your playhead. If you want to move it around, just click on the blue dot at the top and drag it to wherever you want. So here we're going to cut, so we right click or control click if you're on a Mac, and you'll choose split, and then you can highlight the bit you want to get rid of and just press delete or backspace, and then you can pull the bit you want back to the beginning, bring your playhead back, have a listen, make sure that the edit sounds okay. Having another listen there. And we're grabbing the little square that you can see and pulling it to give us a little fade at the opening. So if there's atmosphere, if there's sound at all behind the interview clip you've got, you'll want to fade it in, you'll want to use that to fade it in. And don't pull it too far, because now anything behind that line won't be audible. So just pull it so that it's the atmosphere that you fade and not the actual speech, because you don't want to lose any of that. So have a listen and check that that sounds okay. That's fine. So we're thinking about making another edit. We've moved our playhead by pulling that blue dot at the top of the vertical line along. We're going to right click, opt for split. We're just going to have another quick listen to be sure that that's the edit we want to make. Now we're going to make another cut, and we're going to cut that section in between the two out. So right click, split, highlight the bit you don't want, and backspace or delete. Now you can pull the two bits that you do want together, and what you're going to do is pull the playhead back and listen to that join, make sure it's okay. It's not quite. So what you're now doing is, if you slightly overlap those two, now we're clicking on the plus sign down there at the bottom, and what all that does is it stretches the whole thing out so you can see a lot better what you're doing and make much finer edits and adjustments. So what we've done is we've just slightly overlapped. So there's now a fade on each end of those two sections. So any clicks or strange edit sounds that we don't want, that will tend to get rid of that. So have another listen. Does it sound okay? If it doesn't, adjust it a little bit. Listen again. Now we're going to make another edit, so right click or control click if you're on a Mac, split, and then highlight and delete what you don't want. Now that's the section we want, so we're pulling that little square at the end to create a nice little fade at the end so that we don't go suddenly from a background atmosphere to silence. We want that to happen gradually. Now we're going to export, so click File, Export, multi-track session, and then its entire session. And then what you need to do is you need to be sure that it's going to save as an MP3. So there's all sorts of options down there. It might tell you to save it as a WAV. You don't want to do that. Go back and make sure that what you click on is MP3. So decide where you want to save it. Give it a new title if you want to, so that you can remember what it is. Then OK, and now that's saved, and now that will appear in that list on the left there. but it'll also be saved to wherever you've saved it, hopefully your memory stick. So now we're going to do a new session, again, File, New, Multi-track session, give it a name. Okay, so now that little project vanishes. So now we can bring a new piece of audio in again into the multi-track editor. Have a listen, work out what it is you want to do with it. So you've decided that you'd like to cut it here. So again, move the playhead to where you want to cut, right click, split, move away the piece you don't want, highlight it and delete. Again, you're going to put a little fade on the front, a little fade on the end, using that square, little square. Stretch it out by clicking on the plus sign so that you can have a good look at what you've got, make sure everything seems to be okay. Pull your playhead back to where you want to listen. So you can stretch it or you can shrink it by clicking on the pluses and the minuses. Now if you want to actually, you can make it stretch vertically as well as horizontally. So what that's done now is giving you a much broader track. And the two green lines, you can see the sound waves. The fact there's two of them, that means you've got stereo. So you can make it tiny and then you've got lots and lots of tracks and you can do some complicated mixing. But for ease of editing, put it where you can see it well. Give it a decent visibility. Now that yellow line you can grab, and that's your sound levels or volume. If you look down at the bottom, you can see those green lines. They're showing you what your sound level is. So at the moment, they're going up quite high. So I'm bringing it down again, bring the levels down. Bringing it back to the beginning, having another play. Now that's about where we want to be. Or maybe a little bit higher. That's fine. You're fine as long as those lines don't turn to yellow, and particularly if they turn to red, then you're going to distort. So if you push the volume up really high, like that, you don't want that. You've got risk of distortion there because you're hitting right the way up to the end and it's kind of turning yellow. So what you want to do then is bring that down again. There's a lot of trial and error involved. You're constantly changing things, listening back, adjusting them again. It takes time. Okay, so we're happy. So we're going to export that clip. Multi-track, entire session. Give it a name that you can remember. That's going to be useful when you're editing. So often I put the name of the person, or I call it clip 1 or clip 2 or link 1 or link 2 if it's my own links. Make sure it's an MP3, click OK, and it'll now appear on the left. So we're now going to drag another piece of audio across. What we've got now is some atmosphere. It's some actuality actually. We've been recording in a circus, and what we're hearing now is the actors and the producers having a discussion. So actuality really is when you're not interviewing somebody as such, you're recording people doing their thing. So in this case it's them working on their production. So we'd like to use a bit of this and we'd like to fade it around a clip. So we're going to cut it, we're going to choose the bits we want, we're going to split, get rid of what we don't want, pull it back to the start, bring our playhead back again, have another listen. We've decided we want the sound levels to be higher, it's too indistinct at the moment. That's better. Listen again. Use that little square to give a nice fade in at the beginning so we don't have an abrupt transition from silence into this actuality. But the other way you can fade in is by clicking on that yellow volume line and clicking again. You'll get a little blue diamond, and then clicking you'll get a second diamond. Now drag that diamond down to the bottom, and that will give you another kind of fade, a fade that you can actually control a lot more easily. Have a listen. Maybe adjust it slightly. If you want a more gradual fade, just pull it along a bit. So let's move it out the way here, because what we're going to do is we're going to now bring some speech in, a little interview clip, and we're going to stick it in front of the actuality. Have a listen to the clip. Pull your actuality so that it starts to fade up under the end of the speech. So listen to the speech and see how that works. So that should fade up gradually, and so you get to the end of the speech and then you hear the actuality, but it's not abrupt. Play around with it a bit. Make sure it sounds exactly right. That's okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to grab that volume line again, make the little triangle, make another one, drag the second triangle down so that you get another fade. Now you're going to find another little piece of speech, another interview clip. So what we're going to have now is we're going to hear an interview clip, we're going to have some actuality fading in, we're going to listen to the actuality, we're going to fade the actuality down and have another interview clip. We're fading it down because we really need to hear what the person is saying in the clip. We don't want to distract our listener from what's actually being said, but we want to keep the sense of being in that space where the performers are working. So we're listening again. Does it work? I'm just going to make that fade a little bit more gradual and bring it all the way out. And I'm going to cut by bringing the playhead to where I want to cut, right click, split, and then get rid of the rest of the actuality, because we want it to just vanish under that piece of speech there. And have a listen. Back to the beginning, have another listen. We're just going to put a fade on the beginning. We're just going to stretch it out really to just check that we've got everything right. We can see it a lot better if we're stretching it out by clicking on that plus. I've decided that I'm actually going to experiment with fading the speech in and out. We're going to see how that works by using that yellow volume line, clicking on it, getting the blue diamond, and then pulling those diamonds up and down. If you get it wrong, it's very easy. You just pull the diamond down to the bottom and it'll ping back up again, and you'll get the line perfectly horizontal again. So let's export that. Multi-track session, entire session. Check that it's going to save as an MP3. Give it a name that's going to be memorable and useful to us in the script. And save.